Hi, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all well. This is the first of the Bumps and Babies series on this channel, and what I thought I would cover is Group B strep. July is Group B strep awareness month, so I thought what better video to start with than that one. Group B strep is not routinely tested for in the UK. And let's have a look at what it is first. It's a bacterial infection. Mostly women are affected, and the bacteria is found in the vagina and the rectum. It can be diagnosed through swabs, and usually can only be diagnosed through the swabs. The infection can last a few days to a few weeks, and it's cleared up with antibiotics intravenously. It's classed as common. There's more than 20,000 cases of it a year, but it doesn't just affect babies. It affects elderly people as well who've got underlying conditions. So it's not clear what the numbers are of who's infected. It's usually 1 in, let me just get the figures, 1 in 1,750 pregnancies is the bacteria transmitted to the baby. So very small risk of anything happening. And most of those babies will go on to make a full recovery. We've got such great intensive care and neonatal units now that very, very rarely is there an issue. The baby could, in the worst outcomes, the baby could get sepsis or meningitis, and very, very rarely a baby may die. But, you know, the numbers are tiny, and checked up on and treated straight away, there isn't really an issue. The things that you need to look out for, so the symptoms for the baby are being floppy and unresponsive, a very high or a very low fever, very fast or very slow heartbeat, very fast or very slow breathing, and grunting whilst breathing. So you would know that any of those issues for the, you know, in the first 3 months when you come back from hospital, any of those issues, you'd be down to the doctors straight away anyway. And they would very quickly pick up any issues with your baby and get it treated. So let's have a look. There has been a bit of a push for screening for everybody. That's mostly from parents who've suffered a loss themselves, and from the media. And obviously, if you're a parent that suffered a loss, you want to do anything you can to help prevent that for other people. However, no testing is 100% accurate to start with, and the treatment for Group B strep is antibiotics during labour. Now, there's a couple of issues with that. Antibiotics during labour, it's given intravenously, so that really restricts how much a woman can move in during birth. It also obviously dictates that she needs to be in hospital for her birth. So if you were planning a water birth or a home birth, then that will not happen. We've also got issues with using antibiotics. As you know, that there's a huge increase on antibiotic resistance bacteria, and if we're using antibiotics when there's only a 1 in 1,750 chance of the baby getting Group B strep, we are creating more of a problem with overuse of antibiotics and creating more chance for these antibiotic resistance bacteria to evolve. The other issue we have is antibiotics can cross into the baby's system and really severely impact the delicate bacteria in their guts. And this not only affects their digestive issues, but it can also have impacts for them in later life. It's really hard to get that. In fact, you can help to repopulate the bacteria with breastfeeding, but you're never going to get that bacteria back to what it should be. So there's always going to be some issues. So it's not just as straightforward as just being tested, having the antibiotics, and and everything will be fine. In fact, there was a study done in 2019 about the overtreatment of group B strep, which is extremely high. I'm just reading this so I get it right, but in 2014 and 15, under risk prevention, 138,933 pregnant women were colonised with GBS, but only 350 babies developed the early onset of the infection. And what that means is that 99.75% of women were treated with antibiotics in labour who didn't need to be. And that's not just causing an issue with how their potential birth outcomes and how they felt about their birth, but those extra babies will have issues with their microbiome that will go on to affect them a lot later in life. And I will cover this in a video at some point, because the microbiome of babies is something that's been looked at in depth very recently, and how it's affecting babies as they grow into children and adults. So there's also no evidence to support that giving the antibiotics in labour is actually going to reduce the number of deaths of babies from GBS infection. And in fact, it's so rare anyway, and we've got such good treatment that it's not really seen as a huge issue. If you, as a woman, have had this GBS infection, or a previous baby has, then it may be worth your while having the test, just so you know something to keep an eye out for. If you have antibiotics in labour, they will keep you in certainly for the first 12 hours to observe you and your baby. Obviously, there is effects of antibiotics for you as well as the baby. I've heard stories of, or reports back, not stories, but reports from women who had antibiotics in labour, and it caused thrush, which caused feeding issues and digestive issues very early on in her postpartum, which really had an effect on her mood and causing, some postpartum depression along with that, as well as causing issues for her baby. So it's not something to be taken lightly. It's not something that you are likely to be asked about. The thing is, it can be picked up whilst you're during the urine tests, and that again is not quite so accurate. If you find it in your urine, it doesn't mean that it's going to have an effect on your baby, but it's just something else to think about when you're giving the urine test. And I'll do another video on the urine tests and what they're looking out for. But if you are offered the chance to be tested, thinking about the pros and the cons is really, really important for you in making the decision as to what you want to do. So in conclusion, GBS is around within 25% of women, and on the whole causes absolutely no problems with your baby. It won't be passed on. If it is passed on, it's very rare. Remember that 1 in 1,750, so that's quite a high number. If you are that one, it is very likely that your baby will be fine. If you pick up any of the symptoms, then intravenous antibiotics for your baby will clear that up, and you won't have any issues at all. The issues from having the antibiotics is obviously the microbiome risks for your baby, and for you means that you will have to birth in hospital and have IV antibiotics, and as well as for the rest of people, which isn't really important, but it is going to promote that rise in antibiotic resistant bacteria. So, you know, weighing up the pros and cons if you're asked if you want to have the test is important. I'm going to leave it there. I hope this was useful, and I look forward to talking to you next week.